Roll damn tide.
High tide.
Yeah. All right.
No commercial, by the way.
Let's talk college football with our buddy Andy Staples here. Alabama, Michigan tomorrow. Those quarterbacks we were just talking about. And I love the calendar. 4 more playoff games in a short period of time. Ready to go, man.
Absolutely. Andy Staples joins us now. You see him every single morning on 3, The Andy Staples Show. What is up, Andy? How are you today?
Can we talk about the high tide commercial? It drives me insane. It's not the high. There are 2 things about it that drive me nuts. One is the way the guy's wearing his hat, like he's never worn a hat before in his life.
Yes.
The second is, how old are the people who are supposed to be the
players.
Alabama players?
I know, it's like 40-year-olds.
These dudes are in their 40s.
Yeah, and the last guy gets off as like an out-of-shape soccer player, like crazy hair.
Could you not find some 20-year-old? Like, there are football players you could hire as extras.
Yeah, this is the world of NIL.
I mean, yeah, right. It's NIL. You could pay these guys.
Exactly.
Probably get them cheaper, in fact. No, I hate the commercial myself. I'm with you on that one.
I mean, but in all seriousness, moving forward, if you're Greg Byrne and people like that, you're going to use the Alabama logo. It's great advertisement, but you also have to use our players. Yeah.
And make that a reward for the walk-ons. Because, listen, Alabama walk-ons look very, like, they look like guys who started other programs. Like they look like what you're on for there.
We were talking, Andy, about quarterbacks that possibly will go to the NFL, and Quinn Ewers' name came up. You know, is there a possibility that Texas can win a national championship with Quinn Ewers and say, hey, look, man, we appreciate everything you've done, but we don't want you back?
We had this conversation on the show today, and it's really interesting because obviously I don't think you can have Arch Manning. Like, Arch Manning's not going to sit another year. So you have to make a decision. I do think if Texas wins the national championship, that probably is a problem that solves itself. Because to win a national championship, Quinn Ewers is going to have to play really well over the next few weeks. And I think he would play so well that he would be very confident entering the draft. And you look at this class, it's not a super strong draft class. You know, you got Shedeur Sanders, you got Cam Ward, you got Carson Beck, who's coming off a UCL injury. So essentially Tommy John surgery. And then Drew Aller said he's coming back. Like, that's the other question. What if Drew Aller leads Penn State to a national title? Is he still coming back? I think he is. Because I think Drew Aller's situation is he's sitting there going, I can be 1-1 next year if I have a good year next year. But these other guys, I don't think it's quite that way. But the Ewers thing's really interesting. So what happens if like they beat Arizona State and then they lose in the semis and he doesn't play particularly well? Like, what do you do then? And I think the answer that we've assumed all along is they're going to go to Arch as the starter next year, and then Quinn has to decide whether he wants to go in the draft or play somewhere else, which, by the way, that was the decision for Will Howard, who's the Ohio State quarterback currently. He was looking at that last year, and Cam Ward was also looking at that. Remember, Cam Ward briefly decided to enter the draft.
Yeah, I do remember that, and ended up probably improving his stock greatly this year playing at Miami. I'm interested with your outrage, if any, on what Cam Ward did this weekend. And
what did Cam Ward do?
I
mean, seriously, do you actually believe Cam Ward walked in at halftime and was like, I'm out? Or how about the thing that makes much more sense if you understand how football works, that they probably agreed he was going to play a half, and then they were going to Emory Williams.
But if you're...
And then Mario Cristobal didn't want to admit to that plan.
Why not?
After it cost them a game.
Well, and wonder if Cam hadn't broken the record if he was a touchdown away.
Does he play the whole game?
He kept playing after he broke the record. He broke the record in the first quarter.
Yeah.
See,
I mean, seriously, guys, let's use some common sense here.
You
really
with us
think
in the
Cam
first...
Ward walked in and was like, I'm done?
That's the way it's been reported, Andy. Maybe not.
It hasn't been reported at all.
Yeah. I believe...
No one has said what happened.
And Cristobal is being very silent. I said in the first segment that I really, as a guy who's followed Alabama his whole life, I want to see Ty Simpson in the game tomorrow morning. So I would have no problem Milroe playing a half and Ty Simpson playing the second half.
I think they were embarrassed because they lost. And they didn't want to admit to this that this was the plan all along. Now, there's also the Galaxy Brain version of that, where they knew that Emory Williams was going to look like that. And it is a cry for help. It is a bat signal to the transfer portal. Like, if you're a quarterback, please, we need you.
Yeah, but that's bad business on Miami's part. Now you got to pay a quarterback that much more.
Well, yeah, but
But if
it's better
Emory
than
would have been
7-5.
good, you'd have a little bit of leverage, right?
I don't think they have any leverage at all. No, here's the thing about Miami, and we should have known this. We should have seen this coming. Because remember when John Mateer went into the portal from Washington State? This is the guy who replaced Cam Ward, who's actually probably even a bigger prospect in the portal than Cam Ward was last year. Like, John Mateer was the most sought after guy in the transfer portal. But he was always going to follow Ben Arbuckle, the offensive coordinator from Washington State, who went to Oklahoma. He was always going to Oklahoma. But there was a little right there at the end, oh, Miami wants to get it on John Mateer. And it's like, oh, okay. So you really weren't that confident in what you had next year. So I think there's more. That's, if we're just talking about what makes sense, that actually makes sense. Cam Ward walking in and saying, I'm done, doesn't make sense. Also, why was Cam Ward still in uniform throwing a football before Miami's last drive? Like, if he was really out and didn't want to play.
Andy Staples is with us on 3. Andy does the show every morning right there at Andy_Staples, at Andy_Staples. You can get that at On3's YouTube page. Do everything you do for us. Set your alerts so you know when Andy's live. Follow him on social media as well, at Andy_Staples. If there is an upset in one of these two one-sided games, the big underdogs, Arizona State, Boise State, if there is an upset, which one and why?
I think it's Boise State over Penn State because a couple reasons. Okay, so Boise State, the other thing they have besides Ashton Jeanty is a defense that was second in the nation in sacks per game. So you can potentially cause some mistakes, cause some turnovers, cause some game-changing plays. Also, the way they play offensively, it's a lot of Ashton Jeanty. It's pretty risk-averse. Like, the chance of them melting down the way SMU did against Penn State, it feels much less likely. Now, I guess it could still happen, but the way they play feels less likely that would happen. And then you've got Ashton Jeanty, who's had time to rest now. Do we get to see the first month of the season Ashton Jeanty, who was averaging 10 yards a carry, who had a great game against Oregon, which from a talent standpoint has every bit as good of a defense as Penn State's? So that's the path. I still don't know if it can be done. We've talked a lot on our show about it's almost like back in the 90s when you'd play the Bulls. Do you let Michael get his 32 and then just try to shut down Scottie Pippen and John Paxson and those guys? Because I think if you're Penn State and Drew Aller and company have a good game offensively, you can do that. You can do that and win, 21-7 and not feel too bad about it. But I do think there's a path there. If Jeanty goes off, like you look at the game he had against Oregon, where he's breaking a ton of tackles, he breaks a couple long runs, I think there's a chance for Boise State there. I see less of a chance for Arizona State just because I like Texas's defense a lot. Texas's defense is the unit I probably trust the most that's left in the playoff. I don't entirely trust Texas's offense, but they also get some weapons back. They were banged up in the second half of that Clemson game. We were still ramming it down Clemson's throat. So I think Texas is okay against Arizona State. That I would worry a little bit if I was Penn State. But again, if they play their best game, they still win. But if we see Ashton Jeanty go off, if he has one of those 25 carries for 200 yards, 3 touchdown games, Boise State can win it.
I've kind of talked myself, Andy, into Gunner Stockton's going to be okay. I know Notre Dame's defense is really good. What is your expectation right now with this time off for Gunner Stockton?
I'm fascinated by this whole situation because he did come in against, I just sang the praises of the Texas defense. He came in against the Texas defense and looked as good or better than Carson Beck had looked in that game. And remember, Gunner Stockton was operating off a pretty limited menu at that point. Because how many reps with the ones would he have gotten going into that game? Probably not a ton. So now you've had weeks of knowing you're not going to have Carson Beck, and you're preparing the offense around Gunner Stockton, who has a big arm. He's not as fast as Stetson Bennett, so it's not going to be like suddenly they're running the read option over and over again. But he is mobile. He's more mobile than Carson Beck, as you saw in the SEC championship game. So I think they're going to be fine. I really do. I don't know. Like, I don't know if I believe he's better than Carson Beck. if he was better than Carson Beck, Kirby Smart's not a sentimental guy. Like, he would have played him if he thought he was better than Carson Beck. But if it can be as good as Carson Beck, then Georgia can win a national title with him.
A lot of people want this next round of playoffs to be on campus too, and I understand it was awesome the first round.
Bring it.
Yeah,
Andy's with me on this one.
But I am excited.
This is not even a debate. This is
I'm excited about the
secondary
Rose Bowl
market.
and the Sugar Bowl sites. I'm excited about those two sites. The other two are going to be lackluster to me, but I do think Ohio State, Oregon, and Notre Dame, Georgia, and New Orleans, those are okay to me, Andy.
Why does Georgia not get to have a home game?
Yeah.
They were better than Notre Dame.
They were
Why
SEC
does Notre Dame get a whole
champions,
game and
yes.
Georgia doesn't? Also, you're asking fans to travel 3 times if their team goes to the national title, and 4 times if they play in the conference championship game. Like, that's too much. It's based on the NCAA basketball tournament, but the numbers are different. Like, so here's how it works in the NCAA basketball tournament. First weekend of the tournament, there are 8 teams at an NBA arena. So there's 8 fan bases filling a 16,000 seat arena. That's not a huge ask. You're asking 2 fan bases to fill a 70,000 seat stadium and then travel again next week and then travel again the following week. That's a big ask. And I don't think people are going to do it. And, oh, by the way, college football is better on campus.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And, by the way, home field advantage should mean something.
Yeah.
Earning home field advantage should mean something.
I agree with you on all of that. And if I am an Oregon fan, I am asked to make a very difficult decision right now. Like, the Rose Bowl is nice if I'm a fan of one of those teams. But if I'm an Oregon fan, Andy, I'm looking at 2 massive long-distance travels after this game if my team continues to win.
Yeah, I mean, the closest next stop is Dallas.
That's right.
And then you have to go to Atlanta if you win. Like, that is asking so much of those fans. And I guess if you're talking about it, like, I'd rather go to the Rose Bowl than to Jerry World or to Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta if I want to see the iconic venue and all that. So I guess I'd probably choose this game over the other ones, but I want to see my team. Like, if my team's playing for national title, I want to see that too. It is such a big ask. And I know people say, well, yeah, but you gotta buy tickets to the games on campus too, but that's different. You probably live 2 hours.
That's right.
Most of the people going live within a couple hours of the stadium. It's a very different situation and a different ask than what you're asking of these fans to do going to the neutral site.
It's not a plane, flight, and a hotel. I mean, all the rest of these are planes and hotels, and you don't have to do that on campus.
Nope. And they want you to make a weekend of it and all that. Okay. Like, where's the money to make the weekend? Like, it's hard enough to go get tacos now. Like, you're asking people to go eat out every meal for how many days?
Yeah.
Like,
it's a lot.
At a certain point, you're telling the fans, like, we don't care about you or your money.
So, Andy, I think Ohio State is going to win this entire thing. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that Oregon beats them, sweeps the season series, and Ryan Day drops to, at that point, what would he be, 3-7 against top 5 teams.
67-11 overall.
Hey, look, I don't think the guy should go anywhere. But do
just had to throw it in
do you
there.
think
It's
there
just
is
fun.
still a possibility that Ryan Day could lose his job?
I've said all along, I don't think they would fire him. Like, even if they'd lost to Tennessee, even if it had been really bad, I don't think they would fire him. The only thing I think that would result in a change at Ohio State is if Ryan Day said, to hell with this, I'm done. Like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I don't think any athletic director is going to fire a coach who's been that successful, who continues to bring in talent at that level, who continues to put that good of a product on the field. Yeah, you got to figure out the Michigan thing. But, you'd think he can. Maybe if he lost to Michigan again, they would do something. But I just don't think anybody would fire a coach with that record right now.
Do you think? And I just saw your tweet about Jim Mora Jr. His threat this morning about tampering with his UConn roster. So you think actually Jim Mora Jr. is the kind of guy who would name names?
Historically, yeah. Having dealt with him in the past, I've got a text out to him. I'm hoping I hear from him today. I'd like to talk to him about it at a little more length, just to see, where he's at on this. We had a really good conversation about a month and a half ago. I was doing a story on the run they were on this year, because this was a really good UConn team. Like, I think people forget because UConn went independent in football, and it's just like, okay, they're not even doing anything anymore. This team won 9 games this year. Like, he's doing a fantastic job there. And one of the reasons he's doing such a fantastic job is he's actually been able to keep the core together. Like, they've done a good job recruiting some guys that were, kind of under the radar. They've been getting guys out of the portal who were not necessarily, people who were just kind of looking for a new home. But they hadn't lost that many. They lost a tight end to NC State, who was an obvious, they did a great evaluation on him. He played great. He knew he was going in the portal. There were no hard feelings about that. Jim understood, you've earned your right to go play at a really big time place if you want to. But what he's trying to deal with right now is guys who want to stay at UConn, and people are calling and saying, look, we'll give you a bunch of money to come play for us. And, there are rules against it. Now, it's crazy because when he tweeted that, we were actually talking about that very topic on our show, because we were talking about the Miami situation and how, based on what we saw from Emory Williams, Miami needs to go get in the portal and get a quarterback, but there's not really a difference maker out there right now in the portal. So they're going to have to tamper with somebody. And we said it like it's just a matter of fact, like you're going to have to tamper. Tampering's been going on in college football for a million years, even when guys had to sit out for a year. There's so many ways to do it and not get caught. Now, granted, I'm betting Jim Mora probably has some receipts already from people who are really dumb, who tampered very badly. So I'm very curious to see if that's the case. But I don't know what you do about it. And I think if you read Jim's tweets, because he's been responding to people who responded to him under that tweet, if you read his tweets, he said, I'm not really sure what the answer is either, because honestly, they don't enforce it. My thinking on this has been the coaches don't really want it enforced because they would like to reserve the right to tamper as well. But Jim's in a different position because of where they are in the food chain. Like, UConn can't really tamper with anybody, but everybody can tamper with UConn. So if you're him, you don't really have anything to lose.
I think when we read, all of us, Darian Mensah to Duke, $8 million for 2 years, we thought that was absolutely insane. Is there any validity?
Yeah, I also didn't quite believe that one either.
Yeah, there's the answer.
Where do you think the number? You mentioned John Mateer. I mean, what do you think the numbers are? I mean, for Mateer, like $4 million might make sense. Mensah to Duke doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think $2.5 million or so feels like the market rate for a good quarterback right now. It was $1.5 million last year. It went up because there's so much more money being pumped into the system with revenue sharing, the schools being able to pay potentially starting this year. So everybody's got more money. So that's why you're seeing the numbers go up. But yeah, I thought that number seemed a little off, but we'll see. I mean, the thing is, Mensah actually is one of the probably 3 most sought after QBs in the portal, maybe number 2 behind Mateer. So the fact that somebody would offer him a lot of money is not surprising to me. That feels like a giant amount that doesn't quite jive with the market.
You know who I thought about when I read that was like Cooper Flagg reading that story, being like, "Wait a minute,
Hold
whoa, I'm playing Duke basketball. Yeah, what am I getting here?"
Well, his is
now,
already set.
I think
Doesn't matter.
I don't know what shoe company has Cooper Flagg, or if he's got a shoe company deal yet. Now he exists in a world that none of these football players will ever touch.
That is true. That is a good point. All right, Andy Staples, Andy and Ari right there on 3 Sports. You can follow Andy on social media at Andy_Staples. We appreciate the time as always, Andy. Always fun talking with you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Take care. Andy Staples with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.